Okay, so what are we going to compare this to? Well, we can tell whether it was printed on an inkjet printer or a laser printer or a commercial grade printer or an industrial grade printer by looking at the print quality under magnification and comparing it to other items that are from those types of print technologies. So that's a pretty basic start. That will tell us, is this made on official industrial kind of equipment like real cards are made on? Or is this made on something smaller scale, like inside the Wizards of the Coast office or something like that, or maybe somewhere else, we can look at that, we can compare. So one of the coolest things that we can compare, I suppose, is the card back. That's going to be incredibly useful because it's just a regular card back. So we can compare that to a Magic card, preferably of the same era, and see if they match. You can pretty much authenticate a card by whether the back matches or not. So if the back is real, and we check the front to make sure that the front's at least printed with the same kind of technology and not something that's, say, like a wiped Magic card that's then basically been altered or printed at home, we'd be able to tell under magnification. We want to make sure that's not happening. But as long as the front and the back are printed with the same technology, and the back is definitely real, and we look at the edge and everything and make sure that it's not something like a rebacked card or anything crazy like that, then we can be pretty sure it's real. On top of that, we have all this info from Wizards of the Coast employees and from the print facility itself that says, hey, it's real. So any claims that it's fake after looking at all that are either ridiculous, unfounded claims, or they need to have some kind of evidence to support the claim. And, whatever that is, we'll take a look, if there are any claims. Okay, so first off, let's address the concern of rebacking a little bit. So, that's one of the accusations is that, well, that's just two cards in a sleeve together. I've already shown you that it's not. It's a single card. So, rebacking a card is the process of taking the front of one card and the back of another card and putting them together. I actually have an example of that in my binder over there. I suppose I can get it out. So, I can tell you that this is not a rebacked card. First of all, there's usually evidence of rebacking in the thickness of the card. The thickness tends to vary a little bit on rebacks. A lot of times you can see what resembles water damage, which is from the glue used to hold the cards together by the person who does this. The factory doesn't actually use glue. It uses a graphite laminate between the layers, and that is the colored core that you see. It's the graphite laminate layer. I have an example of that, too. I can show you that. Okay, so in order to reback a card at all, what you need is a back, which can be acquired in this instance, and a front. But as we've already discussed, this is not like any normal card that was released. And so you can't really create this by rebacking because there's not a card like this to use to put a Magic back onto. On top of that, it has square corners. So, yeah, that's just not happening. A reback is not what this is. You can't add the corners back onto the card after they've been rounded, and there's nothing to use as a raw material to make a card with. All right, so let's get out my rebacked card and take a look real quick. That's going to be way at the back. Okay, this section back here is fake cards. And this one right here is real on the front and on the back, but it's two separate cards that have been stuck together from different sets. And so it's not what it appears to be. Okay. So this is a rebacked card. It's from a set that's called Collector's Edition. And there's a little bit of a spot right here. I don't know if it'll show up in the light. There you go. So that surface imperfection, oh, you can kind of see it. Well, I had it there for a second. Okay. You kind of see how ugly the surface is, the way the light reflects off of it, like it's dirty. That's from the glue that they used to hold the card together. So this is a rebacked card. If you check the corners really close, you might see a little peeling or something. You know, things like that. You can tell, if you look closely, that it's been separated and stuck back together. A lot of times, rebacked cards don't feel the same stiffness because the glue that people use to hold them together dries rigid. So it's not the same as a graphite laminate that would be in a factory card. Oftentimes, rebacked cards are also not quite the same size, height, or width as a real card. This one's just a little shorter. And the reason for that is that the edges are, oops, slipped there. The edges are sanded down to get rid of the glue that sticks out of them. Now, I don't want to provide too many instructions on how to create rebacked cards. That's not why I'm here. Please don't try that because you'll get caught. But rebacked cards do exist, and it's a thing. I can see why people would be concerned, but a very important component is that you have to have a card face to work with. And there's not one like that. On top of not having one like that, there's not a square-cornered one like that. So, yeah, checking it out. I'll get a scan of the edge in a minute so you can see it. And it's just not rebacked. Okay, what we have here is the card edge of the Blastoise. I have scanned it and dropped it in here so everyone can have a look. Much easier than trying to get the camera to focus or use a loop or anything like that. Alright, so this is a scan at 4800 DPI. Fairly high resolution. And we're just going to zoom in and take a look. Okay, so we have cardstock on one side, cardstock on the other side, and this blue layer in the middle. Now, the blue layer is typical of Magic cards, and this is Magic card stock. So this is basically what we expected to see for a card that's printed on a Magic the Gathering foil sheet. We can zoom in a little more. That line there is just an artifact from the scanner, right here. Maybe I can straighten this a little. There, that might make scrolling a little easier. Okay. There's that blue core. If I remember correctly, Pokemon cards have a black core, typically. Some Magic cards also have a black core. A lot of people don't know that, but it's a thing. So that core is a graphite laminate which holds the front and the back of the card together and gives it its resilience, its sort of flexibility, its bendability. It allows it to bounce back after being bent a little bit. So it kind of gives it a snap feel. And the reason it's colored is to prevent people from seeing through the card if you have a bright light behind you. Which color it is isn't particularly important, other than we know that certain products traditionally use certain colors, so we can kind of use that as an authentication check. But as I mentioned, at least with Magic, there are certain print runs where other colors are known. So it helps to be knowledgeable, and again it goes back to, comparing your item to the correct other item. So zooming out of that real quick, you can see that the card has a core, typical Magic cardstock, like we expect. Switching back to here for a second. Here is a card that is just the back. No front. And that's not separated or altered in any way after the fact. That came from the factory that way. So this is an issue where the laminate didn't do its job, didn't adhere like it was supposed to. Something failed in the process. And this came in a pack with only half the card. You can't really create this by separating a card. When you separate a card, like if you were going to try to make Reback, it's not this perfect. You damage the blue layer. And when you do that, when you damage the blue layer, then the card typically fails the light test. And the light test is when you shine the light through the card. This is probably going to be pretty bright because I only have half a card here. Yeah. Way too bright for you to see much going on there. Okay, so let's actually get one of these out and look at it with the light. Did I do that yet? I don't think I did. Okay. So there we go. Is that what you expected to see? Probably. You see, on foils, the light doesn't shine through very well anyway because of the foil layer. If you compare that to a more typical Magic card, boy, I don't know if that's going to come out on the camera very well. Here, if I move the light back a little bit, you can kind of see the word Magic in the back. And on this, all you get's the shiny foil. And again, that's to be expected because it's a foil card. But I had the ability to light test, so I thought I'd show all of you what it looks like. Someone was bound to ask. That pretty much covers that. So now that we kind of have, some background info here, let's really get to looking at the card and let the evidence speak for itself, huh? The moment you've all been waiting for. We get a USB microscope here, and we'll pull up some card images, see if we can do some side-by-side comparisons. let's see, let me position this way so it's right side up for me, and flip on the other image. Okay, first things first, let's establish like a baseline of knowledge here. All right, so I have here 3 Mox Emerald cards. Now you might notice they don't exactly look the same as each other. The color's kind of different. Okay, that's because these are fakes. So I'm going to put these under the microscope here, and you all can see what different kinds of printing technology looks like compared to a real card. Okay, so this goes under the camera here. Let's shine it up. So I know that probably doesn't focus very well. There you go. So this is inkjet printing. Let's pop up the real one here for comparison. Okay, real one on the left. Inkjet on the right. This was a real Magic card, so it's a real Magic card back, it's real Magic card stock, but this is inkjet, printed on top of a real card after removing the original ink. The surface is very porous, and the ink is very liquid, so you end up with this. If you were to print on, say, a piece of paper or something, you would get a better quality image because the paper is less porous, but then you would have to adhere the paper onto the card, and you'd have a thicker card that was obviously layered at the edge. So I won't bother showing that on camera. It would be obviously fake. Okay, so next card, that's the inkjet. Next, we're going to do this one. Okay. Get the real one up here again. Bam. All right. So this card is laser printed, LaserJet. Oops, bumped it, darn. Okay, so you can see the black lines look fuzzy, the black text looks fuzzy. That gray area there, instead of being black dots, it's all the different colors. Sort of resembles rosettes. It's not actually. There's these yellow marks in the white space. And, you know, just in general, the color isn't the same as the real card. If you look at the brown on one side versus the brown on the other side, they don't match. All right. That's this one, laser. Now we're going to go with this one. So this one is made on an offset printing press. So here's the real card again, and here is... So this one's actually made on the right kind of a printer. But it still looks terrible. On top of that, there's printing in the white space. There's not supposed to be. That's because they don't have the original print files to make the card. They just made it up. They actually probably based it on a scan of the real card, and a copy of a copy never turns out the same way. So in order to make a believable fake, you would need to have the original print files and all of the correct industrial printer and inks and cardstock to accomplish that goal. And if you're not Wizards of the Coast, you don't have that, because only Wizards of the Coast has the original print files. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of authentication a bit. So now we're going to look at, let's see, what should we look at next? Let's go over just a little more information about these cards. Okay, in September 2016, the person we're calling James posted these two cards on Facebook. And the drama ensued, etc. We covered that already. So what happens after that? We mentioned E4, etc. Moving on past that, we get to April 2018. That's a date that I mentioned earlier in the video. April 2018, GP Seattle. James takes this card. Actually, he took both of them. But this card to one of the vendors at GP Seattle. And that person is entrusted with the card. And we'll call him Ben. Everyone needs some kind of a name here so we can tell them apart, right? So let's just pretend that his name is Ben. So he gets to have this card for a while and try to see if he can do anything with it. And James holds on to this one. Some more time goes by until July 2019, which is a busy month. During that month, a member of the Pokémon community manages to contact another Wizards of the Coast typesetter who worked on Pokémon and confirm a few more things. Unfortunately, that employee is a bit secretive and doesn't want everything to be revealed to the public. But he does confirm it privately, but he doesn't allow the information to be shared other than a general acknowledgement that the cards are legit. So that doesn't really provide more evidence, but I guess it's a step in the right direction. Shortly after that, someone finds another one of these Blastoise cards. It's in a storage shed that's full of old inventory from a closed-down game store. Now, I can say that this particular game store is known to have been frequented by Wizards of the Coast people, both people who worked for the company and artists, and one of the owners of the store actually modeled for the art on a Magic card. This is a place that was pretty well connected. It was, not far from Wizards of the Coast headquarters, etc. It was a nice hangout spot. So they had some interesting things in their inventory when this person sorted through it, and he happened to find one of these Blastoise cards. Lucky find, huh? He shared it with some people, contacted me. I got some high-resolution scans to compare to the other images I already had. He also posted about it on the E4 Pokemon forum, and this time around it went quite a bit better. Maybe not perfect. There were still some issues, I suppose, but considerably better than last time because there was more information to work off of. This card right here ended up being shipped to me from James, and the person who found the new card, they managed to contact another Wizards of the Coast Pokemon person, which happened to be the same person that was contacted by the member of the Pokémon community earlier, and he managed to visit with that individual in person and show them the Blastoise card. That particular employee of Wizards of the Coast happened to have an uncut sheet of these test prints, and so pictures of the sheet were shared along with other additional information. He also gave permission for those pictures to be shared by the person from the Pokémon community who'd contacted him previously. Long story short, we ended up with sheet pictures and some more information, a secondary Wizards of the Coast employee confirming the story of the first person, and another copy of the Blastoise card. Later in that month, I opened this card on my previous Mail Day video. Since then, people have been waiting for me to make this video, so here we are. Shortly after opening the card in my video, I took the card to Misprint Con Columbus. That was a meeting of high-end collectors, and I don't know if everyone wants their names to be named. I know one person doesn't, so I'm going to leave names out of this, I guess. But several high-end Magic the Gathering oddities collectors were there to inspect the card in person. And we looked at it. We looked at it under a microscope, with our naked eye, with loupe. We compared it to all kinds of things. Like there was someone there who's a global collector of Pokemon cards. He has global sets of certain cards. That's great reference material. We had a variety of test prints from all eras of Magic made by Wizards of the Coast. We had internal printed items like these. And we had these mini cards. We had stuff like this that's, made for fun. We had just about anything that you could want to compare with, and all the tools necessary to compare it, along with several sharp minds. And our conclusion is that the card is real. There isn't a way to convincingly fake that, as far as we know. And again, it really goes back to Wizards of the Coast has the original print files, and no one else does. And any copy that's made with some other method is, at best, a copy of a copy and never has the same quality. All right, so I feel like I should show you the sheet pictures. So let's pop those up. We'll start with the sheet backs. This is a traditional Chinese portal, the first portal, card back. So that's what sheet this is. And this was printed by PBM Graphics. That's the name of one of the print facilities that Wizards of the Coast regularly uses for making stuff. The reason that we know what it is because it says so down at the bottom of the sheet, and also it has these strategy cards that are scattered about the sheet, and we can see what language those are written in. Here is the front of the sheet. Now the sheet back is a full sheet, but the sheet front is only printed in the bottom left quadrant of the sheet. The rest of the sheet is blank. So this sheet's been folded, which you could see the fold lines in the previous picture. This sheet's been folded so that only the important portion is facing up. This is a sheet of mostly Magic test prints. So the red cards at the top are Lightning Dragon cards, and there's a few different varieties there. And then the next cards down below it, the next two rows, are called Drifting Meadow. And then the bottom row is mostly a variety of expansion symbols and mana symbols, things like that, with one card at the bottom right, which is the Blastoise. Here's a close-up of the Blastoise card on the sheet. If you look closely, you can see that it's exactly the same as these cards, with the exception of the border color. That's the only difference. Still on Magic foil, but it has a Magic black border. The red Lightning Dragons on that sheet are prototypes, or test prints, for the very first foil card released for Magic the Gathering. That card, Lightning Dragon, was a pre-release card that was released in September of '98. So this test that we see on the sheet took place just after the Exodus foil test prints, as another step towards creating foil cards. This Pokemon card was on that sheet because Wizards also needed to create foil Pokemon cards. So foil cards were a very new thing for Wizards of the Coast at that time, and there were a variety of things tested during all these test prints. Some of the more important things being tested were ink density, opacity, and ink adhesion, because the foil isn't as porous as normal cardstock, so the ink doesn't soak in or bleed outward in the same way. Ink covers the foil, so it's a balancing act to get enough ink for a good picture, but not so much ink that you hide the foiling. It's not just about seeing how the card looks. It's really more complex than that. Like, you can see how the card looks on a computer screen as far as, general layout goes. This test print is more for like a color saturation issue. It's something that's where the digital image doesn't look the same as the physical printed object, just because of the way physics works. The reality of the color coming from an ink and, a pigment, instead of coming from a computer monitor. It's just a different look. And before they print millions of copies of something for public release, they want to make sure they got it right. Okay, so an important part of that lesson there about the sheet is that the card backs on that sheet are from traditional Chinese portal. So this right here, this is a traditional Chinese portal card. And this card back should be identical to what we see on that sheet with the black border Blastoise. As far as what card back was on the later sheet with the yellow border, Blastoise. That's a little harder to say, but it was really soon after, because they didn't have much time between the summer of 98, when they were doing this, and September, when they released that Lightning Dragon card to the public. So this is going to be representative of our card from the correct era, and we'll use this to compare to the Blastoise card back. So we'll get to that in a second. First, let's finally take a good up-close look at the Blastoise card. So this card right here, I've made a 2400 DPI scan, and we're going to check it out. Bam! Okay, there we go. So there's our card, and we are going to zoom in. What areas would you like to see? Just start at the top left. We can zoom in pretty far here. We might actually exceed the ability of the average person to zoom in, so it might look strange when you're trying to compare it. But, yeah. Once we get that far, we're starting to get a little pixelated, so that's pretty good, huh? Maybe that's zoomed in too far. Let's zoom out a little to fit that into one screen at least. How's that? Does that look okay? We'll stop here for a second. If anyone wants to check out the shadowing here, dot angles, sizes, anything like that. You can see that the text is solid black. That's good. Text should be applied in a separate layer, which creates that solid black. There's the symbols. You can see the blue lines right here pretty well. Number 9 out of 165. Hopefully this gives everyone a chance to check out the card. Yes, this is a shadowed card, even though it was released, or not released, but even though it was created before English base set. If you have a look at the Japanese card that it's based on, it's also a shadowed card. So if you're only familiar with English cards, this may be surprising to you. But if you're familiar with Pokemon beyond just the English stuff, then you might understand what's going on here a little better. Here's a decent look at the expansion symbol. The red color, symbol, black text. I think that's a pretty good shot. You got a lot of variety there and reference points. And we're back around. So let's go down the middle. There's some more symbols. Feel free to pause the video and screen cap it and do all the comparisons you want. Let's zoom out a little bit, see if we can get just the picture on the screen. Can we do that? That's probably zoomed out too far to really be of any use for authentication. Okay, so there's what the Blastoise looks like on the front. And I have a scan of a regular card that we can compare in just a second. And I haven't compared it yet. Who knows what we'll find out. But it'd be interesting to look, huh? But first, let's check out the card back. Okay, we're going to take this card here, traditional Chinese portal, and we're going to stick it under the microscope. There we go. We can do some comparisons here. I know a lot of you are going to want to look at this green mana symbol. And then we'll pop up the scan of the card back. Zoom in a bit. Not quite the same scale there. Okay, a lot of you can probably already see what you need to know. But for those of you who don't know, let's go ahead and point it out. When authenticating Magic the Gathering cards, a popular test is to look at this green dot. And the thing that most people look for is, let me get my pointer here, is this red dot, this red dot, this red dot, and this red dot. Sort of an L shape of red dots. That being the only red dots here, pretty much. That's the way real cards are. They have that. The fake cards have a very hard time duplicating that. We're going to try to zoom in here on the real card. There. You can see the same red dots there. Now, I don't know if I have the card angled quite the same way, but it's pretty close. You can see the yellow dots run at the same angle. That's also important. Okay, the card on the right has a little bit heavier black ink, but that's just regular production variance. That changes with the speed of the press, how much ink the rollers pick up, things like that. Both cards look legit. A variety of you can agree with this, and you can see the picture pretty well here. I know this probably won't be much help to the Pokemon collectors, but the Magic collectors can see this. Just for comparison, here is what a fake green dot looks like. Noticeably different. Now this is one that's printed on an offset printing press, official industrial type equipment. This isn't a homemade thing. Even though they had the right equipment, They didn't have the right print files. They also didn't have the right ink or cardstock. These two, if we looked at them, they would look normal on the back because they're printed on regular Magic cards that have had the front erased. Okay, let's look at a few other areas. Just for good measure. Guess it would help if I had that straight. Sorry if the lighting's a little off here. I could adjust the brightness of my microscope. Might as well look at all of them, huh? All right, let's check a couple other areas of the card. Let's have a look at how about that? Okay. Let's go back to the card front for a second. And let's put something like this underneath the microscope. Okay. Now these are obviously very different things, so maybe this won't be helpful for you. Let's go look at, where was it, this top section here? This was a pretty good section. Lots of information. Yeah, lots of information in this area of the card. All right, compare that to the card on the right. So this card on the right is printed internal to Wizards of the Coast. And it is made on a laser printer. I can tell by the way the print looks. So let's go down to the card text down here. Basically, it doesn't look at all like a card that's made on an offset printing press. Okay, now let's look at the mini card. So this is a card that was made at a print facility local to Wizards of the Coast as an unofficial item using the Wizards typesetting technology. This is the kind of quality that you get when an employee makes something on their own. You can see that it's still not the same quality that you get with an offset printing press on an industrial scale like a real print run. So I can tell you that the Blastoise cards were not made with an inkjet printer. They were not made with a laserjet printer. They were made on an industrial offset printing press. I can go further than that and say that I've talked to a pressman who saw the sheet inside the print facility way back in the day. I've talked to him on and off through the years. It's been really wonderful talking to him. It's great to have an inside source that's not Wizards of the Coast. It's a different perspective. So the Blastoise card, it's not rebacked at all. That's just not a thing. It has a real Magic card back. And it has a front that's printed on an offset printing press at a professional industrial facility. It's printed at the same facility that later printed regular Pokémon cards. Multiple Wizards of the Coast employees say that it's real, along with someone from the print facility. Let's see if I can manage to do a side-by-side comparison. Okay, I can't be sure whether I have those at the same scale, but it's pretty close. So here we have the Japanese promo, CD promo on the left, and we have the test print Blastoise on the right. And there's what we ended up with. So I think that's a pretty nice comparison of the three. You have the Japanese CD promo on the left, the missing link test print in the middle, prototype, and then the finished product from English. Pretty cool to see them all side by side, really. See if we can zoom out. There we go. Now you got all of them in one screenshot. Someone might like that. I didn't scan this Japanese promo card. It's just a picture I grabbed off the internet. So it's probably not as high a quality of an image as the other two scans, which I made myself. Yeah, the two on the right are both at 2400 DPI. It's kind of neat to see such a high-resolution image of it. It's interesting, the ink is actually a lighter saturation here on this real card. You can see the little speckled dots. That's the foil underneath coming through. Or it could be the white layer coming through if the black is just, you know, not that solid. Over here you can see it just a little bit right here and there, but you don't really see it on the black. I would say the test print's higher quality. Which is kind of to be expected for a test print, honestly. Test prints are carefully made And the printing facility really wants to look good when they're presenting the item back to the company. Whereas the card over here on the right is just a regular part of mass production. It's going to be sent to the customer, and Wizards of the Coast has never really expected to see it. So as long as they're mostly okay, that's good enough for the print facility. Okay, what other comparisons could I do here? I did think of another comparison that I should do here. So all of the previous scans and close-ups that you've seen in this video are from the first Blastoise that I received. I did compare the two Blastoise that I received to each other to make sure that they were the same, but I thought I should also show the audience here. So this photo here, this left card is the first Blastoise that I received, which is the one you've been seeing in this video up until now. This middle card is the second Blastoise I received. And this card on the right is the third Blastoise, which was found in the storage facility in the old game store inventory. Now, I don't have this third card here in my hand, but this high-resolution scan of it was provided to me. It's not quite the same resolution that I used for the other scans. It's not quite that high of a resolution, and it was also scanned with a different scanner. So if you see a slight color difference between the two, that's what's going on. It's just a different scanner, different image sensors. Okay, so here they are side by side. You can see them and compare them to make sure they are actually the same. And I'm going to zoom in here so we can get a closer look also. All right, so this left one I'm not going to spend too much time on because we've already seen it. It's in all the other previous close-ups and things. Maybe we'll look at that, huh? All right, now going over to the right. Okay, we can see some color angles here and also here. They match. We have this one here matches that one there. And that's, I'm looking at screen angles there. All right, let's go over and look at the other card, huh? I guess I could spend a little more time on this one, maybe. All right, on to that right card. back up just a second here. Okay, we still have this same screen angles going on. So that's good. Still have this issue right here. Now what this is that the art box here, this area, the art box here, this is not covered by any white underprinting, so the foil can show through between the ink dots. Whereas this card border area, all this space, this does have the white underprinting. So this area appears to be non-foil. There is actually foil under there, it's just been masked by an opaque white ink. And this, what we see here, is a mistake. This is something that should probably not be foil. So I'm sure when they went back and corrected it, they would, want to change that masking line so that it wasn't just this plain shape. Just going around the card here a bit. There's those symbols. Symbols are usually a pretty good thing to look at for authentication. Okay, that's probably about enough of that. All right, going back to the other picture now. I guess it's worthy of pointing out here that on the center card, the test print, the artwork is actually zoomed out a little bit. You have more of the artwork there than you see in the CD promo. And for that to be possible, whoever made that test print in the middle has to have the original print files. I mean, that were used to create the promo card. It's not just a straight copy. So what's the story here? Let's recap. After assembling all the information and visiting with a variety of people, inspecting the card, having other people inspect the card, I have to conclude that the card is real, that the story is real, and that story is